Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gangadas, your host. Welcome to Radio Mayapur. Today it's raining. It's been raining for the last 10 days, and it's going to rain for the next month. I think it's a monsoon start coming. Take out your umbrella, but it's beautiful. Yesterday, I was looking at the sky, and it was beautiful change of color. Sometimes the sky was clear and you can see the sunshine, and then the clouds come in different colors, different birds. Everything is clean. Everything is growing fast because of the water and the rain, and there's nice breeze, so we don't need AC. Some people don't have, but so welcome to Mayapur. Today we're very fortunate. We're Chandrashekar Acharaya Prabhu, who we broadcast his music every day, every single day. We are listening to his music, wonderful music, very talented person. And he's born in LA in 1973, and he studied in Oxford University, which is and also he saw the devotee in LA, but at one point he decided to take seriously spiritual life in Paris, and that was in 1993. Welcome, Chandrashekar Prabhu.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's an honor and a pleasure too.
So tell us, I ask always all my people I do a podcast with, tell a little bit about your family, or when you grew up, where you grew up. You grew up in Los Angeles, which is a beautiful place.
Actually, my formative years were in Paris. I kind of ping-ponged between LA and Paris, especially after 8 or 9 when my parents separated and my dad stayed in Paris. My mom moved back to LA, where she had immigrated from Croatia when she was a teenager. So, and then I did a 8th grade in Paris, and then a 12th grade again in Paris. And so, except for the first maybe 8 years of my life where I lived in Paris, even though I was born in LA, kind of ping-pong between.
So you learn many languages. Do you learn French? Vous parlez français?
Oui, monsieur.
Oui, monsieur. C'est très joli.
And you just said you're very beautiful.
But you pick up also some language from your mom.
No, she never taught me Croatian. She regretted it afterwards. But I did pick up Spanish because we used to spend about 6 months a year in Mexico. And my dad used to work in Mexico. And there's a lot of Mexicans in LA. And
todo el mundo habla español.
Todo el mundo habla español.
Solo los tontos no hablan español.
Only the fools don't speak Spanish.
Well, it's one of the most spoken language in the world,
right? Except
Bengali and Italian. Not so much. It's a small country, but there are Italian everywhere.
Not as beautiful as Italian, though.
No, it's okay. I like Spanish also. So, but you have brothers, sisters?
Well, my father had a first wife before my mom, and he had 3 kids who are like 20 years older than me. My older brother, Michel, and then Danielle and Dominique, 2 girls and 1 boy. So they're like 20 years old.
They were relating to you nicely? They were protecting you?
Yeah, we never really grew up together. And, generation gap, plus a little, distance. So they were always kind and generous to me, but we never really grew up together. Okay. We're still in touch.
That's nice. That's wonderful. Keep always in contact. So then, at a certain point in your life, you say to me before that you saw the devotee in Paris. But at a certain point, you had a journey, or you have a quest in your life, or you start to inquire about spirituality, or what? Tell us what happened, because you're a graduate and you study religion.
That came after, like about 15 years of full-time service in ISKCON.
Okay. I thought before. So, but how your spiritual life or inquisitiveness in your heart started?
In high school, I had a professor who I'm still friends with. He's quite elderly now, but Larry Morissette, who taught us some extra. I was in his honors history class, and so he gave us some philosophy books to read, Krishnamurti, some Buddhist texts by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I guess even though I had grown up somewhat Catholic, I was never really that impressed, I guess, by the Catholic creed or by Catholic priests. That never really impressed me. Perhaps I wasn't, mature enough. Suffice it to say that my dad had a collection of pre-Columbian art. I think that played a key, because he had a big collection of Maya statues and Inca statues that he had collected, in Mexico before it became illegal to take them out of the country. So I grew up with these, 2, 3, 4,000-year-old statues all over my dad's apartment. He had taken me to Egypt. My mom also. He had taken, when I was 16, he took me to Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico to visit the Maya ruins. So somehow I was attracted to ancient civilizations.
Right.
And the figure of Buddha attracted me.
Of course.
And so in high school on my own, I was trying to, dabble into Buddhism and at bookstores, pre-internet.
You ever thought that the history they teach us in the school is not real, or there was something missing? I always felt like that,
huh?
By observing the ancient historical stuff which left, like in Rome. There's so many things.
God, Rome, amazing.
Egypt, the pyramid, the Incas, the Maya, and then they say, what is? They say this is what just some stupid people with some chisel and they build something
very
for
advanced.
What? It didn't make sense to me. So I was also intrigued by the fact that there must be something more, that they're not telling us in a storybook of schools what they're teaching us.
I agree. I also was a little bit, maybe not a bit, I was suffering. I didn't know where I wanted to live. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I couldn't even, I was struggling with this dual identity. Am I French? Am I American? Where do I belong? And I guess I was searching for higher meaning. But there was one incident, since you asked, that one story I think that was key. And my dad used to have a country home in a resort in Mexico on the coast, on the Pacific coast, a place called Playa Careyes, between Puerto Vallarta and Manzanillo. He was one of the first people there to buy a little property, and it was sort of a ritzy jet set place, but he was not so much part of this jet set scene. He just liked to, keep a low key. But we used to go there every Christmas holiday.
Nice.
And there was a woman there, Italian, Laura Benvenuti, and her Hindu name was Tari. And she knew me since I was a kid. She's maybe 20 years older than me. And she had married a Mexican gentleman there. So she she ran a little shop there that sold textiles and silverware from Guatemala and stuff. And she was kind of like the shaman type, white witch, kind of always wearing white silk and with incense burning. And she had been to India many times. And so I had a relationship with her. I saw her every year, and she kind of stood out from that sort of very jet set crowd. Now, right after the end of my first year of university at Cornell University, I called my dad, who was in Paris, and I said, listen, Dad, can I go to Careyes for 2 weeks and just relax after a hard first year? June 94, 93. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I went there, and in Mexico in June, it's off season. So, there was rainy season, so there's not many tourists. But somehow, so I was there was no tourists around. I was just relaxing, beautiful place, the beach. And so, one day, a few days later, I see this Tari who happened to be driving from Guatemala in her yellow Volkswagen Bug, van, the hippie van, with her two little boys, who were maybe 7 and 9 at the time. And she was driving from Guatemala, stopping in Careyes for a few days and going up to some convention in San Diego to sell her goods. And so she tells me, listen, I didn't realize how long the trip is driving from Guatemala to San Diego.
So far away.
Can you please drive with me?
That's nice.
So I thought, okay, I want to help her. So I cut my trip, I canceled my return flight to LA, and instead I left a week earlier to travel with her. And that 1 week with her was key, because that's where she started telling me about Shiva and Babaji and Sai Baba and Paramahamsa Yogananda and, I was already vegetarian, but, we did kirtan with her 2 little boys. And so she kind of, opened my curiosity to the world of Sanatan Dharma, which I hadn't, no one had introduced me to that.
To you. Yeah.
So when I got to LA, I bought some books, but I had already received a book at the LA airport by some one Tamal Krishnamara's disciple. I think his name was Balaram. He passed away a year or 2 ago, Filipino. When I did he was the only person that could have given me that book. So I'm eternally grateful to him. And in that small book, which I took to Paris with me to do a year abroad at the Sorbonne after my first year at Cornell, and so a combination of this trip with Tari and this book where I called the temple in Paris in September 94. And fortunately, someone answered. It was the temple president at the time who told me that this coming Friday, some famous Swami from India called Bhakti Charu Swami is coming and is going to give a lecture at the Indian Cultural Center. So I remember I called a friend of mine, this Vietnamese French guy called Ai Kip Man. He was adopted by a Jewish family. And I said, listen, there's this famous Indian Swami coming. You want to go and listen to him? And he's like, yeah. So we took the metro and we went to this lecture where Bhakti Charu Swami gave a talk translated into French on Bhagavad Gita, like reincarnation. We're not the body, the soul, but the Vaishnava interpretation of reincarnation. Nice. And when he was speaking, I was in the audience. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like I felt, like a river of purification going over me. And philosophically, I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. And then there was a kirtan on stage where he actually said, how sometimes Christians, especially the Protestant Christians, they say after they do a preaching program, they say, okay, anyone now come and walk down the aisle to accept Jesus, and people come down and walk and they get baptized. So I remember Bhakti Charu Swami says, now we're going to do a kirtan on stage. Anyone who wants to join us, come on stage. And I felt like I was like lifted by something. I remember I even looked at the person next to me. I was like, it's beyond me. And I walked down the aisle literally and walked up on stage and I was all shy. I didn't even know the Maha Mantra, and Bhakti Charu Swami was, leading the kirtan and then giving the mic to different devotees to lead. And then I remember he came up to me and I was like, Hare Krishna, I didn't even know the Maha Mantra. He just smiled. And so the combination of that kirtan and the philosophy that he explained before was like a knockout.
What was the book that the devotee gave you in the airport?
It was a small book called Message of Godhead.
Message of Godhead.
I think it was an essay that Prabhupada wrote on the 3rd chapter of the Gita before he went to America.
Nice, that's beautiful.
And there's a preaching center in Paris. So really 5 minutes walk from where my dad had a house and an apartment with a small little studio on the top floor, which is where I used to live. So 3 times a week, I would go to the center and hear Bhagavad Gita, a devotee give a lecture, a little kirtan, a little samosa prasadam, and started chanting. But the first book I ever got, actually, because that Message of Godhead I never read, and there was this brahmachari at the Paris temple, Harikesh Swami disciple. Mm-hmm. I think he was from Croatia, and we became friends maybe because my mom was from Croatia, and he gave me as a gift, do you remember this red book that came out in the 90s called The Nectar of Book Distribution?
Yes.
Big red book.
With all the quotes of Srila Prabhupada about book distribution. Yeah.
And also quotes from like Harinamananda and Nirada, Vijay, like these big books.
Everybody was.
And so that was the first book I ever got in my Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning, I was like, kind of exposed to, the verses from the Bhagavatam, verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada quotes from his letters, conversations about the importance of spreading Krishna consciousness.
Beautiful. So nothing happened by chance. I believe in that. And that certain people you meet in your life, they are directing you towards your desired goal. And
your karma that you deserve.
Karma, I wouldn't say, because I would think because the devotee are the messenger of Krishna. And Krishna say, I give you power to distribute my mercy. Krishna is merciful, but the devotee are more merciful. So when they approach people, and those people are receptive in accepting that knowledge, combination of things can change the direction of our life. Do you believe in that?
Yeah. I think we've all, at least I experienced it.
Wonderful. So tell us your early experience or living with the devotee, because I remember when I first met the devotee, I thought, these are my great friends. It's like you meet people that after a long time that you already know, and they treat you like a very kind, very nice, very welcoming.
Well, I had a traumatic experience in Mayapur. What happened is I joined you. Well, I was pressured into dropping out of university.
Okay.
University is Maya, it's a slaughterhouse, don't waste your time, join the ashram. Okay, Prabhu. So I moved to New Mayapur, and then there I got to hear about this Mayapur, India, and Mayapur festival every year.
Yes.
Remember there was a small magazine called Mayapur Journal?
Yes.
So I remember I used to look at these journals with these pictures of the parikrama and stuff. And so at the time, Swami Paramgati Prabhu was... Or Swami was GPC, was staying in New Mayapur, and I asked him, can I go with you to India? Because I know you're going in a month. This was February 94, and he was going to the GPC meetings the following month. And I had the little money enough to buy a plane ticket. And he said, yeah, I think it's a good idea. So I kind of bypassed the normal thing of waiting a couple of years. I mean, I was speaking to Radhika Nagar yesterday. He was saying he didn't go to India for years, even though he did like a decade of like 7 days a week books. So I ended up in Mayapur. But what happened is that during the parikrama, I got possessed by a ghost.
Whoa. In which place?
Somewhere in Mayapur during the parikrama.
During the parikrama.
I was, choking, foaming at the mouth. I mean, I ended up in the Calcutta hospital. My poor mother, she came to Mayapur to see her son who had joined the Hare Krishna cult and dropped out of Cornell University. And then first thing she sees me is like,
in the hospital.
Ghostly haunted. And as a matter of fact, I mean, just as a detail, this was really, it's true. I mean, it never happened before. I don't have any epilepsy. I never had epilepsy before. I never had epilepsy after. Arjuna Prabhu, do you know a Prabhupada disciple from Mauritius? He has a patched eye, white.
I've seen him, yes.
So he does kind of like ghost busting. Mm-hmm. And I remember like 15 years later, I'm in Mauritius at his home having lunch, and somehow the topic of ghosts come up. And he said, God, that reminds me. I remember I was in Mayapur in early 90s. And I remember they told me, Arjuna Prabhu, please, you have to go to the Calcutta hospital. There's a young boy there, and he's really possessed by a ghost. And I knew he was talking about me,
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, really? Tell me more. Tell me about it.
You didn't know it was you.
It was me. And he described, I went to see this boy, and I started chanting the Shinga mantras to him, and his eyes rolled back, and this horrible cavernous voice came out of his mouth. He was laughing at me, and his back was, getting up. And I told him, I said, Prabhu, that was me. And he's like, what? That was you? I've never seen this in my life. So when I flew then, I went back to Paris. The ghost was still bothering me there every time I would go to the temple, choking, foaming, the whole 9 yards. And then when my dad was like fed up with me, he said, I'm buying a ticket, a one-way ticket. Let your mom deal with you. So he sent me to LA because they wouldn't even have me in New Mayapur. It goes to show when devotees can, do service and make money for you. But when they become a little bit of a liability, I don't want anything to do with them. Anyway.
Persona non grata.
Persona non grata. But when I flew to, apparently ghosts don't follow you across long distances of water.
I guess so.
That's what they say. So as soon as I got to LA, never again. That was, 94, and this 31 years later, nothing.
The ghosts want to remain in India and catch somebody else.
But that was a traumatic experience. But anyway, but somehow Krishna got me to LA, which was a much better experience, I think, in terms of brahmachari training than Paris, because there, the temple was very poor, very small, very austere. In LA, it's, the opulence of the LA New Dwarka ashram. And I had good training. I went to the LA airport, and then, all of a sudden I'm doing book distribution at LAX for 5 years. Excuse me, are you flying in or are you flying out? Here, we're showing this to everybody, with Vijay and Tara and doing book distribution at the LA airport. And once a year, we'd get to come to Mayapur,
Nice. Actually, when we do book distribution, I did it for 10 years in the Sankirtan party from Mayapur.
Oh, you were in India. You were doing it in India.
I was in India. I met the devotee in India, in Kathmandu, actually, in 1979.
So you did traveling Sankirtan in what years here?
From 79 to 84.
It must have been a totally different India.
I was in South India as a temple president in Chennai, in Madras.
Wow.
So, but India at that time was completely different. And there were these communist people. They were the Naxalites. Who were extremists.
Violent, right?
Violent. We had some encounter with them. I knocked a couple of people down,
Really?
But it's okay. They came there, they took the book table, throw it in the sky.
But they would throw the book table.
Wow. They were very violent. They were against religion and stuff. But anyway, what I want to say is that when we do Sankirtan, you really have to be surrendered to Krishna, because who is going to buy this book? Who is interested? You're like jumping off the airplane with a parachute, and say, okay, here we are. Every day in Calcutta, all over India, we travel. And I was driving the van all over India. Driving the van.
And you were some brahmachari, like Indian brahmacharis?
Yeah, always. Yeah, Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was, at the time, Jagadish. He was our in charge. And Bhaktiananda Saraswami, Arjuna Nath, many people in South India, Madhu Pandit in South India, and
before he
became a Ritvik. But so many devotees, many are still here. Radhakanta Prabhu, Narottam passed away, Shamananda is here, Brahmachari, still Brahmachari. Wonderful devotee and very nice company. And our training was on the road. We sleep in Dharmasala, and every night we have a program in some temple, in some place. So Sankirtan was like going to the army again.
Because you went to the army in Italy.
I was
before?
in the army, for 1 year. At that time, it was
mandatory.
Was mandatory, which was good. In the beginning, I thought, oh no, it's not. I don't want to waste my time. But I think what instills you is discipline. So, which was very useful for me in my spiritual life as well. So, but tell us about, apart from this difficulty, tell us the best time you had in Krishna consciousness in that time that you remember very vividly, apart from the Mahaprasadam and the Sankirtan, the Kirtan, I don't know, the music. You're a musician as well.
After those years, I became Bhakti Charumarja's personal assistant or secretary for 4 or 5 years. And after that, I was involved with Indradumna Swami on the Polish tour for 5 or 6 summers. So every, the Brahmachari years in LA had their, its nectar. The traveling as Bhakti Charu Swami's assistant had its nectar. The Polish tour summers, and then doing kirtan in the Paris subway. For 8 months a year.
Yeah. Wow.
We called it Metro Yoga.
Metro Yoga.
That was also fun. So I don't know which period. I mean, out of all those, I wouldn't be able to say which one was the
But you have good memory. Good experience.
Definitely. I'll always remember like a marathon. This is like back to the first phase Brahmachari life in LA. During the marathon, the December marathon, we'd spend so many hours out there. And I remember it was like December 23rd, and it was like 10:30 p.m.
It was cold.
Inside the airport, it's
inside the airport is okay.
Yeah, and LA is always warm anyway. So, but we had been there since 7 a.m. Walking, just up approaching people all day, and it was like 11 p.m. I remember, and we had a half hour left, and my knees were killing me. But I remember I was in such blissful consciousness, Prabhu, approaching people like in a. And I never had that type of absorption. Like you say, the absorption in Lord Chaitanya.
I think Lord Chaitanya give you special shakti to do this many
doesn't Prabhupada call it samadhi, right? This is called samadhi. So in the 10th canto, deep meditation. So even though externally you're in this stressful situation, airport, noise, pollution, stressed out people, you're so Krishna conscious. More so than what is it? Chasing after Krishna in some bush in Vrindavan.
Of course.
So that was there were, and then traveling Sankirtan with like Kostuba, traveling Sankirtan, going to these rock concerts and distributing books picnicking, like kind of what you did, but in America, cross country. That's so good. Discovering America for the first time on these adventures, where we also had to avoid, hide from the police.
Or the Hells Angels.
The Hells Angels. I never had any experience with Hells Angels with that. So, and then Bhakti Charu Swami, that was also ecstatic, being in his close association, and thanks to him seeing all of ISKCON, because he traveled so much. So all of a sudden, I'm seeing all of ISKCON, different temples, nice super nice welcome. The Hindu community, a lot of his disciples were from India, so I get to see, a lot of the Vaishnava culture.
In which year you were initiated by Bhakti Charu?
95 and 97. Here in Mayapur, I was there was only one initiation in the Prabhupada Samadhi.
And gave it to you.
And I was the only white guy among all these Bengali Prabhu God brothers in the day after Gaur Purnima.
Nice.
I don't know why they never did any more initiation ceremonies in the Samadhi, but they did one.
Very nice. He was very sweet. I knew him from the very beginning when I was in Kolkata. I was a temple commander under the president Adridaram Prabhu, and he was translating all Prabhupada books into Bengali. Right. He was in Rainy Park. Yeah, we have a small flat, so he has one small desk on the floor and sitting on the cushion. And at the time, there was no computer, there was nothing. It was by hand, writing. And, he was such a scholar also, because he knew the language Sanskrit and he knew Bengali. And his Bengali was very high quality Bengali. I can speak Bengali now, but not to the level where he speaks such sophisticated words. As a gentleman, he's been always a gentle person, very sweet, always working on solution, always encouraging everybody. Amazing personality. In fact, when last time we saw him, we all told him, "Oh, Mara, don't go in America, this COVID, this." Everybody told him. We told him also. He said, no, I must go. And then we felt great loss when he went there because, anyway, it happened. But tell me a little bit about this Christian West. Because one time I remember I met you in the temple and we had a little bit heated argument. Not so much, but...
I don't remember.
I don't remember also much. But I remember speaking to you about the dress. Oh, why you come dressed like this in the temple? Because this is India. I know we all wear. When we go to the temple, we wear dhoti. When we drive motorbike, we put pants and shorts. It's okay. I'm not a fanatic or anything like this, but tell us about your experience of Krishna West or your attraction to Krishna West and Hridayananda, His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj. I was listening yesterday a lecture in Italian and was explaining about this to the devotee in Italian. Funnily enough, one day Hridayananda Maharaj came to Calcutta Temple and he said, "Ganga, you are in Italian, right?" He said, "Yes. Can you teach me Italian?" "Yes, Maharaj, when you come and spend a few months with us, I'll teach you." He said, "No, you have 3 hours." I say,
3
yes.
hours.
So we went to Rainy Park. He took one Chaitanya Charitamrita in Italian language. He said, "I'm going to read this." And of course, he knew Spanish before. So it's easy. Spanish, Italian are very similar. But he said, "I'm reading this, and if I make any mistake, so you correct me." And in 3 hours, he spoke fluently Italian, And for me to learn Spanish, it took me 3 months. I had a girlfriend and I was with her for 3 months. She only spoke Spanish and I only spoke Italian, so I picked up Spanish. But he is a linguistic. He speaks many languages. And I was very, very amazed. I said, Maharaj is a genius. How can somebody in 3 hours learn Italian, Amazing personality. So anyway, he had this... he didn't like so much India. To be frank with you, he didn't like much the Indian food. I don't know. But
I heard him glorify India many times. And he laments that when he goes to India, he gets sick. That's why he can't go so often. Yeah. And a few times, he even mentioned, like recently, he wants to come to India and spend like a whole year because he's doing a Mahabharata book, And not so much a translation, just sort of a dramatized 6-volume. I think 2 volumes are out already. And he wants to write it in those actual places. So
he has done a beautiful book, the Bhagavad Gita. It's like a revision not by chapter, but by subjects.
Yeah,
which
wonderful.
Is very wonderful.
Gita study guide.
Very scholarly, very interesting for us to understand.
Did you ever meet Madhavendra Puri Prabhu from France, Bhakti Charu Swami disciple?
Maybe.
Because he and we translated that into French.
Oh, nice.
It's a great book. It's for introduction.
Also in Italian, many languages.
Yes, also in Italian.
So tell me how you come across Krishna West, or how you were influenced, or how you...
It was at the time when, first of all, when I went back to university. So after all these years of doing, I don't want to use the word full-time service, because even if you're a grihasta with a job, you're still doing full-time. This notion of who is a full-time... But anyway, I was doing, let's say, full-time missionary work, and then I... all along, Hridayananda Maharaj was very much an influence. And I remember I would be in LA, and after Sankirtan, we'd go and have darshan of Hridayananda Maharaj, and he had just gotten back from Harvard University, and he was, emphasizing that if devotees have the nature, they should, why not engage modern education in Krishna's service for the preaching mission, kind of like Lord Chaitanya had done by taking sannyas from a Mayavadi school. And I felt really inspired to go back to college for Prabhupada, That's why I got a degree in religious studies. But, the temple president at that time was against, this education. And even Bhakti Charu Maharaj was kind of against it. So there was like years where I was like torn because my heart wanted to go back to college. And so finally, after like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years, I
took a decision.
And I was I'm doing it. And so when I went back to university at University of California in Santa Barbara, I took some courses on world religion, sociology of religion. And so for the first time, I was exposed to the other stands on the market of religion besides ISKCON.
Yes.
Religion in America in 2008.
There was not much.
There was a lot. I mean, so many religious. I mean, the number of religious organizations in America is insanely varied. There's hundreds of Buddhist organizations, thousands of Christian organizations.
Yeah, different types.
So many different types. Yeah, exactly.
The Christian, the Catholic, the Protestant.
So I was starting to look at Vaishnavism and Krishna consciousness and ISKCON in particular, sort of from a little bit of a detached, external sort of academic, like outsider view.
Yeah.
And the topic of dress is part of the greater discussion of inculturazione, the inculturation. Like yes. Matteo Ricci, one of the first Catholic priests who came to India or to China. They would
start to wear their own dress.
They dressed like Confucius monks and learned Chinese and ate Chinese, and so it seems like that strategy.
They blend
and without hopefully losing their own. So there was one key moment where I remember Ridhana Maharaj was giving some picnic talk in West Los Angeles near UCLA, and I came a little late, and because I was driving from Santa Barbara, and he mentioned this one thing that for me was just like a wow, and it kind of got me on this, not just the Krishna West project, which came later, but on this whole analysis of dress, like dress in Krishna consciousness. And he made what I think was a fantastic point, was that there is no historical, remember, I sat down and he was saying, there is no historical evidence, zero historical evidence that when people in Navadvip here joined Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, they had to change the way they dressed.
They were already wearing dhoti, they were wearing gamsha, they were wearing kurta.
But then again, wait, and this I only figured out a little bit later to answer to your point. For example, we have mention of the Pathan Vaishnavas.
Pathan Vaishnavas, they're the people who go on the horse.
And they became Vaishnavas.
And they were wearing the dhoti in a different way. I can teach you how to put the dhoti in.
They had long beards, though. And I think Kaviraj Goswami does talk about the jalabas.
Sure.
So, and it was black. We hear the word black.
Time because it's very hot.
Haridas Thakur the paintings of the epic is dressed like a Muslim with the Muslim lungi.
Yeah.
So
there is no that, but I don't. The point is that I think when I came in India in '79, so everybody was wearing dhoti at that time. I was in Himachal Pradesh and went traveling all over India.
No, nobody wears it.
Nobody was wearing. No one was wearing pant. Yeah, everybody was wearing dhoti or lungi or gamcha. If they were working in the field. So I imagine, and all the ladies were wearing sari. Or this what you call it, Punjabi, dress.
More Muslim influence.
Yeah, colorful also, because I went by road. I came in 1977 from Italy all the way through.
You drove like hitchhiking?
No, I came by train, buses, rickshaw, bullock cart, name it. From Italy, from Turkey. I flew from Rome to Turkey, Istanbul, and then from Istanbul with my friend Fabio Giudice, we came all the way by road and we went to Afghanistan.
And you hadn't met devotees yet?
I haven't met devotees at that time. No, I saw devotee once in '74. They came with a Sankirtan. I saw them. One lady come with a basket of prasada and give us some prasada, give us some cake, which was very nice. I remember telling my friends, who are these guys? Huh. They look so strange.
How old were you?
I was 20.
20.
And I said, no, I was less than 20. I was maybe 18, 17. And I thought, these guys are chanting, dancing, they're happy, they have funny bedsheet dress, they have funny mark on their forehead, the lady, they look nice, and they give us free. And then they start to chant and dance again, and they were very happy people. And I thought, wow, these are the good people, But I took prasadam at the time, in '74. Then I never saw them again, because '74 Prabhupada came in Rome. I didn't see him. And it was the temple, the house, the rent, it was very close to my house, maybe less than a kilometer.
Oh, so you were at least in the same city as Prabhupada.
Same city, same place, but I didn't see Prabhupada. But anyway, the point is that when we came through, we saw how the people dress. In Afghanistan also, they had this big pant, and they had turbans, beautiful people, tall, blue eyes, green eyes, Kshatriya type, And then when we went through, Pakistan, all the people with the beard, all the lady black, everything is dirty, it was like, and then when we came to India, immediately, everything was colorful and everything was nice and people smiling and people were relaxed. But the dress they had at the time, 77, they were all wearing dhoti. In India, 90% of the people wear dhoti. So I am surprised to hear the Maharaj say, yeah, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say you have to change your dhoti or you have to do this, you have to do that. Because
That's a good point. That's a good point.
The culture was
raised
there
a good point.
already. The culture was there set up. And also, Chaitanya was not fanatic or stereotype or anything, He never told Haridas Thakur, come to the temple, I'll take you inside Jagannath Puri,
Yeah.
In fact, he was avoiding, because he knew the culture but the dress portion, I don't think is a big issue. I mean, in India or all over the world for devotee, I don't think was a big thing that inculcated into you, unless you were Dodi or in Maya, nothing.
Well,
maybe in the beginning.
Sorry, you go to ISKCON Hungary.
I don't know. I've never been there.
I've been there. I could tell you straight up. Not just. Most of the temples forget about puja. I'm all for pujaris wearing Western clean clothes. Pujaris, like on the altar, offering.
Can
wear Western. So, what to speak of that? You can't lead a kirtan or give a Bhagavatam class in pants and shirt.
Sure.
In probably 95% of ISKCON centers outside of India. What to speak of in India?
Yeah, in India they will not allow for sure. Anyway, that's a good point also.
And so the question that raises Ganga Prabhu is there a link? I don't know the answer. I think there is, but is there a link between, because when you're, when there's a dress code requirement that's piled on top of non-negotiable things like the 4 regulative principles, which are already very difficult to follow, plus the 16 rounds, which is also non-negotiable, which takes 2 hours of your time. Like the requirements to be, an ISKCON initiative, the bar is very high compared to other religious organizations in the world.
Sure.
Very high. So if you raise the bar, this is a nice expression that Ajita Prabhu, temple president of New Govardhan.
Of course.
I love the way he says, we were raising if we raise the bar even
too much,
even 1 milligram, one millimeter, even 1 centimeter above the fundamental requirements,
we're going to follow.
Yeah, we're going to lose people, and that's violence. One person lost who would come to Krishna if the bar was just at where it's supposed to be, but not higher. But he didn't come because it was raised just a little bit higher than he would have, and then he's stuck in the cycle of birth and death for how many lifetimes still of suffering, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi. So.
But I think now that our standard of goal is very high, but our goal is very high, is Krishna Prema. But the point is that now I see all over the world.
But the link, is there a link? If I can just respect the question, is there a link between this raising the fact that there's this requirement of dress and the fact, as you've seen when you travel with Banu Maharaj all over the Western world, that most of ISKCON in the West now is 95% Indian devotees?
Yes,
and nothing wrong with that, but it's not. It's still an issue because, like in America, for example, it's, the Indian population
also
is 3% of
all over the world,
all over the Western world.
The point
is there a link? Is there a connection?
No. I think there are two different things. One thing I want to point is that nowadays our preaching is more directly toward Grihastha and congregation. So we are not
thanks to Jeff Dagmar, which is great.
We are not requesting them to change their dress. Of course, if you come on the altar, you're second initiation, and you do the puja, you wear a dhoti in chadar. And if you do abhishek and you're brown, then you remove your t-shirt.
Prabhupada wore stitched cloth.
Anyway, but my point is that is not about the question of raising the bar or the question of the dress. Like in Italy, they say, the dress doesn't make the priest. The consciousness has to be there And I don't think it's a requirement, because as a spirit soul, you think when we go back to Krishna, Krishna says, no, you wear a different dress. Who cares? What dress you wear? Your consciousness that you want to please Krishna. You want to love Krishna. You want to love the devotee. You want to serve. Purely, without any other attachment, without any other desire, without any other motivation, that please Krishna. So the idea is that the requirement is there, but let me tell you my experience when I was in the army and I wear the dress of the army. I didn't want to, but you had to wear.
Well, that's
so it makes you feel, for example,
but it's
as
implying
a
that there is such a thing as a Vaishnava dress, and this is where a lot of devotees are starting to question the claim that there has ever been such a thing. There has been such a thing as a Vedic dress, a Hindu dress that Shaktas and Smartas and Kali worshippers.
Yeah.
But I don't want to represent Kali. I don't want to represent Advaita Vedanta. I want to represent Vaishnavism.
But let me say, Draupadi's story, she was not wearing pants. Krishna give unlimited sari, they say. Right? Cloth.
So does that mean that every woman now who joins Vaishnavism?
No,
but that's what we're preaching.
I'm not. But a woman is very beautiful, elegant in the sari.
I've also seen very elegant, chaste women dressed in Christian churches.
Sure.
I remember one time in New Mayapur, there was this Kuli Mela, and I was still, I was much younger, so naturally, and so there was this bonfire, and there was all these young devotees, and I remember during the kirtan, and nobody was wearing in Indian or Vedic or Indian traditional clothes. And among the ladies, we're with the guys. We obviously were looking, and sometimes our eyes wander, or many times. And I noticed all the guys were looking at one girl in particular, and she happened to wear a sari. And every other lady there was dressed, either in pants or in Western style. And she, her midriff was very large, and she was the one who was attracting the most attention to her body. And paradoxically, she was dressed, in the Vedic way. So.
it is elegant, it is attractive, it is beautiful. But we have to do some research work about the dress, but in the Vedic time. But I would think, that if you go on a horse, you can wear the dhoti in such a way that it becomes like a pant, because there is 108 way you can wear the dhoti. For example, people who do these martial arts in Kerala, Kalariyapat. So they also wear very short dhoti, which is like a shorts. Your knee are exposed, but you can jump, you can flip, you can do so many things. So there is, in the Veda, there is description of all these dress codes.
But do you think, but the question is, do you think
it makes a difference for you?
We did a meme with Paramshara Prabhu, who was part of the Krishna. You know Paramshara? He's a German senior brahmachari.
Yeah.
He was head of Krishna West Germany for some time. He's still involved. And we made this meme where there's a funnel, a plastic funnel where you put gasoline into a car. A plastic funnel, a red one, and it said, and the title is Every Town and Village. And the funnel on it says Loy Bazaar. And so the question, do we really think that we're going to be able, and is it even our mission? And I think it's not our mission at all.
No.
Like, with all due respect to Vasu Ghosh Prabhu, and I love some of the things he said, but recently he was on Namras podcast, And at one point, Namras, as humble as he is, at one point he was like, because he's dealing with a Prabhupada disciple, and he's more from a Hindu background. He's, of course. But even he, at one point he was like, wait a second. And so he's like, but isn't sorry if I'm mistaken, but isn't the goal is just to get people to chant Hare Krishna?
Yes,
oh God. Yes. And then Vasudev Prabhu basically said, no, that's not enough. And I remember Namras's eyes were like, okay, and I was like, really? I thought, like, if you get people to chant Hare Krishna
doesn't matter what
and follow the four, they're going back to Godhead. Like, that's they're doing the Yuga Dharma. So, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
What are we trying to get people to do in the West? Are we trying to funnel them through Loy Bazaar? Or are we trying to just say, look, wherever you are, however you are, just start living clean, sattva guna, clean up your everything, wash yourself if you don't wash yourself, and just chant Hare Krishna and follow the four.
Absolutely.
And then go back to God and offer your pizza and offer your lasagna and your veggie burgers.
Whatever. Actually, I appreciate a lot. I listen every day to this podcast, Wisdom of the Sages.
You told me the other day.
And for me, they're very transparent, very honest. And they are presenting Krishna consciousness to a vast audience who don't know anything. So there is no such a requirement. They never spoke about this dress code and stuff like that. I guess when you come to India, maybe you're attracted to wear that because everybody.
Mayapur, I like, that's okay. So this is Mayapur TV. So for those who don't know,
no, this is Radio Mayapur.
Radio Mayapur, sorry, Radio Mayapur. There's that sannyasi, the Prabhupada disciple. I forgot his name. He left ISKCON, but he's in those Prabhupada memories. Oh God, his name is on the tip of my tongue, Gagam Prabhu. Anyway, he mentions in one of those early Siddhanta Prabhu videos that he heard Prabhupada directly say that, and I think you've heard this, that Prabhupada wanted Mayapur to declare independence from India.
Yes.
You've heard that, right?
Yes.
So in that sense, okay, it's like, it's no longer India. I mean, I walk around, in my shorts when it's 40 Celsius outside with a nice shirt, walking around as if Mayapur is really not independent. It's an independent state. Absolutely. And culturally, like I'm a Vaishnava, aspiring Vaishnava. I'm a Krishna Bhakta. I believe Krishna's God. I believe Lord Chaitanya's God. But culturally, Prabhu, I am Franco-American through and through. And that's where I stand in terms of my food preferences. Just like today, it was the maid, the lady who kind of cleans I made some pasta today, and I told her in my broken Bengali, I was like, sabji, rice, dal, bhalo,
but
or ami American, ami Frank, and eta amar food, pasta. It's Italian, but yeah, anyway. So sure. I don't want to change that.
That's why you find the pizzeria on top of going to the restaurant. You find the mabrashad.
So on the food, but you see, Ganga, because of the tongue.
Because we are Italian, we influence everywhere.
So on the that's why I say that the pants is the kryptonite of Yukta Vairagya in ISKCON. It's how kryptonite is the one thing
who destroys Superman.
Superman can't touch kryptonite. So Yukta Vairagya, engage everything in Krishna. So we can engage Italian food, Thai food,
Why not?
Technology.
Why not? Sure.
But mamma mia, if we engage Western clothes and pants in Lord Chaitanya's service, then it's like, this is kryptonite.
No, but I see so many devotees coming in temple from different parts of the world, even from India, they come with a pants. All the guests, they come from.
But you can't go in shorts,
You cannot go in shorts, they give you one dhoti.
I was with Ananta, Ananta Goranga, after the Harinam, he was in his dhoti that he wears quite short. And my Bermudas also come to the same size. And we went to the guard, and in a loving, friendly way, I said, look, and I pointed to his knee. His dhoti comes up to his knee, and my short comes to my knee, but he can go and I cannot go. And they laughed. They got it. They know, but they were following rules, of course. In Vrindavan, I see many people, ISKCON Vrindavan, in the blazing hot, some gentlemen, Delhi gentlemen.
Yeah, they come.
They come in short. What's the problem?
In the West also, it's no problem.
In the West also. I mean, if you're in a really hot place, what church would, as long as you're clean as a gentleman.
We went to Russia many times. It's so cold. You cannot wear dhoti. Or you can wear
they do. And then imagine what people think. Exactly.
There
was one devotee called Narayani. She used to tell me that, this is a true story, that very often you'll have a Harinam, in February in Moscow.
It's cold.
And then these devotees and then these old grandmothers come up to the brahmacharis who are dressed in dhoti in -20 and say, please, my son, they give him some money. Go buy some warm clothes, please.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that the message? Is that the message we want to give to people in Russia? The message is just add Krishna to your life.
That's all.
That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Add Krishna to your life. And if it's -40 in your country,
wear some pants.
Better just wear some pants and socks.
Some gloves also the way.
Yeah, just don't take a picture and send it to...
Time, place, and circumstances. We have to adjust to whatever. Okay, let's change the subject. Let's go about your music. You do beautiful music. You're singing. And we are broadcasting your music. I really enjoy. You have any project to do more music as well?
Maybe one more song. It's just that, as I told you, it's expensive, and you get as many views on YouTube as making a talking face video.
Sure.
So it's just a lot of investment, and I have to kind of count my pennies right now.
Okay.
And also, I'm 52. I feel like the music...
52, you're young. I'm 70, man. Come on.
You don't look at it all.
So look, okay, what is your project, next future project? You're going to stay in Mayapur?
Stay in Mayapur, finish. I have a book, a memoir that I'm writing.
Okay, nice.
It's called American Krishna. And it's about, that's a Prabhupada quote, American, when he saw a picture of Balavanta, Satsur Maharaj showed him a picture of Balavanta Prabhu in Western clothes, preaching in this political party before Prabhupada turned it, cut it down. And apparently Prabhupada, when he saw that picture of Balavanta, Grihasta, dressed in Western clothes in America, he said, this is what I want, that we be known as American Krishnas. So when I read that, I was like, I'm grabbing it. And it's just basically kind of a memoir of my years from when I joined to when I went back to college and everything.
Nice.
The death of my mom, the death of my dad, a disinheritance, the ghost possession,
nice.
Attempts to get married that didn't work, desire to go back to college and not knowing what to do. And also,
I think all of us, all the devotees should write a book about their life, because it's always a very interesting story.
Super.
Many people can be attracted.
There
is any sloka that you like to remember every day, for example, from Bhagavad Gita?
I think in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada quotes this shloka, and he says this should be the motto of all devotees.
Translation?
My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions to his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, body, and words, inherits the kingdom of God because it has become his rightful claim.
Beautiful slogan. So
that verse is a lifesaver when we're suffering.
I'll ask some question to all my podcasters. If you would go back 40 years or 45, you were a little Charlie, what would you say to him?
If I was?
If you would go back in time and you would be a small boy, and what would you tell yourself at the time?
Oh, what would I tell
yourself when you were
when I was 5?
8 or 10 years old?
Well, I would say, look, in a couple of years, you're going to meet some Hare Krishnas on Venice Beach. Drink as much of that prasadam as you can. Don't lose that book, which they're going to give you because you lost it a few months later. And when you meet devotees again, go to that conference of Bhakti Charu Swami. When that temple president tells you to quit university, ignore him, finish school, then join if you want, because then you'll probably be $12 million richer. And chant Hare, that's basically what I would say. And chant Hare Krishna.
And what is the ultimate goal of life?
To have a nice collection of devotees, bro.
I can give you some. So nice to talk to you. There is a message that you would like to give to the audience of today, Radio Mayapur.
Well, first, thanks for whoever's listening. Thank you for tolerating me, and thanks to Ganga Prabhu for having me over. And
it's a pleasure.
And any message, keep chanting and keep chanting and give your life to the mission however you can. Lord Chaitanya's mission of every town and village. In your sphere of influence, engage as much of your time and money and intelligence and talents and everything you can engage in the Lord's service to help other souls come to Krishna.
That's a nice message. Thank you so much, Chandrashekar Acharaya, for coming today and spending your valuable time with us.
My pleasure.
It's a great pleasure to see you always. And Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.